meeting to order. As this afternoon, our invocation will be given to us by Pastor Steve Plank from the I can't say that. Evangelical Church. I am sorry. I don't know why I've always had a problem with that. Ask you please to stand for the invocation. Remain standing afterwards for the pledge to the American flag.
Let us pray. Gracious God, in this season when we are electing leaders, and on this day especially in Georgia where we cast our ballots, we ask you to bless the leaders of our land, that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations of the earth. We ask you to help us elect trustworthy leaders. We ask you to help us contribute when we are able to wise conversations and decisions for the general welfare. You taught your ancient people to seek the welfare of cities and towns and communities in which they lived. Today we commend our neighborhood to your care, that it might be full of life and joyful. We ask you to give us strength of purpose and concern for others, that we may create here a community of justice and peace where your will may be done. We say all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor, for coming and having our invitation for us. First item on our agenda is a consideration of a resolution to approve our agenda. Anyone know of any corrections or additions? Deletions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one if y'all don't have any others.
What you got?
Item number 7, consideration approved first reading to amend the continuing budget ordinance should be from July 1, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. We're seeking to amend the current budget ordinance, not one for next year.
2015 to June 30th.
Yes, sir. This current fiscal year, this is one y'all already approved. We're just looking at an amendment to the previously approved ordinance.
Word processor is through the numbers in there. All right. Anything else? Motion?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented with the one change of new business number 7, with the date being changed to July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Loper. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the minutes for the February 16th, 2016 regular Commissioners meeting. Correct?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for February 16, 2016 as presented. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kiefer, second by Commissioner Deloach. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We noted that public comment should be limited to our agenda items only, and the correspondence documents for this meeting, as are all meetings, are located in the clerk's office and on the Board of Commissioners website. One item of old business, consideration to approve funding for the drainage improvements along John Glenn Drive and Westwood subdivision, previously tabled. from our February 2nd, 2016 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, as you stated, this item is tabled to give due additional time for consideration and allow you all each the opportunity to go out and take a look at the situations yourself. In the meantime, we have gotten the public works and asked them to do a little bit of cleaning to an outfall ditch between the railroad tracks and John, I can't remember the name of the road, the one that comes off McCall Road there anyhow. They were supposed to have done that this week, I believe. I apologize, I did not get a chance to call and ask, or last week rather, and follow up to see if that had in fact been done. But at this point, there's nothing changed in the actual request. So we're certainly, if y'all have any further questions or discussion, we can do that.
By the way that information was presented in our packet, I believe what I understand is there were two possible suggestions for improvement, and one was a little bit over 100,000, one was over 200, but at the end of the day, neither one was a full-out solution. There's always going to hold a certain amount of water there, and the same problem for us all over the place, and if that's actually the case, I can't see putting the money in it, unless somebody else has any other ideas.
Well, one of the solutions was to completely pipe the ditch where there's a ditch now to the closed pipe system. I believe it will still hold water, although you wouldn't see it because it will be inside the pipes. And although it may appear to correct it, as you stated, this is a very similar situation, not only in this neighborhood, but throughout the county. It's a ditch and it's been raining a lot and they tend to hold water.
How would you then not go and anybody's ditch that held water, not go pipe it for them? That'd be a problem. That's a concern I would have as far as if the only goal is so that there's absolutely zero sitting water. I don't know if we can get to that level, but I rode by there and took pictures on the day when it had just rained just all night long. And there was water there. And then I went by again and took pictures and looked after it had been dry for a few days in other places. And there was, in both cases, there was water in the ditch. But even in the severe rain, it didn't come past the ditch, so it was in their yards. And I think that's something Chairman Kessler spoke to last time, was the one fix that we did make in Westwood previously. The water was just about to go inside people's homes, and that's a different scenario than water sitting in a ditch. So.
Yes, ma'am. On Green Drive, which you referred to, we did 2 years ago now, maybe. That was a structural flooding concern, which the pipes underneath the driveway did have the capacity to carry the water that was coming there. So it was coming outside the ditches and in the yards, and in many cases, very near to inside people's homes. This is not that case. The pipes have adequate capacity to carry the water. It's just that as the ditch drains downstream, the downstream pipes are higher and it's holding a little bit of water because they're not perfectly aligned going down the hill, if you will. And from start to finish is a foot or so, but it equates out to about 1/4% slope, or about 3 inches and 100 feet. So it's not a whole heck of a lot of drop. It's just pretty flat.
And as you said, there was some areas that could be cleaned out that might have helped it a little bit. So, we're doing that. But I will say this too, I don't know all the legal ramifications if we have to get into this further along the way, where in an old subdivision like that, some people have gone in and piped the ditches themselves. So you have all this mixed match scenario of people that's already paid to pipe the ditch, and depending on what they've done, affects all the flow also, the grade they put their pipe in and all that kind of stuff. So we have all those problems out there, so that's one of the reasons we don't have an easy fix for the county that way. If anybody else has any other solutions, we're ready to. I don't know how to do it really better than where we are.
No, I think you spoke it very well. And in the previous fix, we actually did have water going up into the garages of houses. None of it actually went into the house itself, but it was actually going into the garages of homes. We didn't have a choice. We had to do something to get the water out of people's homes. In this case, the ditches are doing what they're designed to do. They're holding water. In a perfect world, ditches hold water when it rains and become dry. But the topography in that area just does not allow for adequate drainage. and the soils in that area does not allow for it to go down. So we could do either of these, and you're still going to have water standing in those ditches. So
It's terrible soil.
it is. So there's not a fix. There's not a good solution. We have actually, after all the facts and findings, we have different alternatives.
When you saw it, when you went and looked at it, was that after they cleaned out the outfall area?
Neither time.
Neither
And I don't think he's positive they've done that right this second, so no.
Okay.
But it was higher after the extreme rain, but still in the ditch. And then after most ditches would have become dry, there was still some in it, but it was lower. So it's flowing to the level that the pipe is a different height. What's doing in the city, because the soil won't let it dry in there.
Part of it's draining out.
Yes,
So essentially, if you pipe it, all you're really doing is
it's hiding the water.
It's hiding the water.
Hiding the water. Which I guess is what some citizens have done on their own.
Alternative number 3 is do not approve funding for drainage improvements along John Gordon Drive, which is the staff recommendation, which is, I think, what I'm hearing, I think is what I'm looking for a motion for.
Make a motion that we approve staff recommendation number 3 and not approve the funding. As explained, the funding would not truly take care of the problem.
Motion from Commissioner Jones, second from Commissioner Ford. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried.
I would like to monitor those after the outfalls and just see if it improves.
And that does not limit us from cleaning out the ditches. That's regular maintenance. So we do expect that, as Commissioner Kiefer said, get that done and monitor and see what happens afterwards. All right. First item, new business, consideration to renew a service order with Stamps.com. Good evening, Ms. Fiona.
Good evening, Fiona Charlton, Purchasing Agent. Staff began using Stamps.com in March of 2013 and have found it to be beneficial in saving time and money by greatly reducing the number of trips made to the post office. The renewal service order is for 1 year from March 5th, 2016 until March 5th, 2017 at the cost of $29.99 per month. Although there is no termination for convenience clause in the agreement, the county can terminate at any time but will be liable for the fees for the remaining term of the agreement. The county attorney noted that as the agreement is $29.99 a month, the total potential liability is very low. The county attorney has reviewed and approved the service order with the notation regarding the termination clause. As funding is approved in the current general fund budget and will be requested in fiscal year 17's budget, staff recommend alternative 1. Any questions?
No question? Motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1. Board approval to review the service order with Stamps.com for 2016-2017. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Loper, second by Commissioner Kiefer. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration to approve to accept the roads and drainage infrastructure in Kensington Bar subdivision.
Kensington Forest was constructed in 3 different phases, somewhere roughly between the year 2000 and 2004. As each of those 3 phases were completed, we have yet to accept any of the infrastructure in there. The last punch list for that was done in 2012, and there's several included here in your package that go back from 2004 up to 2012. There's approximately $272.72 that's owed in taxes, and that will be in phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 is paid up. And there are 2 different ownerships, by the way. That's why there's 2 deeds in here. if you notice the latest punch list, and quite frankly, there's a theme that runs through all of them, is talking about potential issues, failures due to unsuitable base and unsealed joints. It's an inverted crown road. In that inverted crown, there's a private water system and septic systems that are in there that serve this neighborhood. One of the residents came to us and requested that we do this. They facilitated getting a deed, or at least half of it, and getting signatures on it. So we're bringing it to you for your consideration. It's one of these that, as we've been going through trying to get these subdivisions, I believe that we should probably own all of these at some point in time. We've sort of taken the easier ones and work our way in. Although there are potential issues in here in the roads, I don't think there's any necessarily holes that have to be repaired immediately. It is a liability like any other road. And quite frankly, between 2015, in 2000 to 2004, these roads are getting to be about 15 years old anyhow, which is pushing the life expectancy of a road. So it's up to you all, what y'all want to do moving forward.
Definitely think we should take them under, the water and sewer, the water and septic system is privately owned, and so we're only accepting the roads, correct?
That's correct. It's a private water system, an individual septic tank. There's not a system per se. Yes, ma'am, but it's, we would not be accepting that.
Would we have to do anything with the roads right now? I mean, the taxes is not that much. I mean,
We don't have, no, sir, we wouldn't have to. I mean, no more than we would do with any other one. We'd go in there and patch the holes, if anything. We wouldn't have to redo the entire roadway. And now, obviously, we would at some point. We need to get on a resurfacing list and get fixed just like all these other roads do.
well, we've been trying to get these roads and get them like they should have been, so I have no problem with go ahead and okay.
Well, this is one where there's not an active developer to go to, per se. On all the lots have been sold, there's citizens that live in there. We are working through like Shadowbrook's another one. Now that the bank has sold that and they're starting to come in with additional houses, we actually spent a good day out there with our people and the consultant staff going through, walking and looking and marking up things, and they'll participate in some of the repairs in Shadowbrook, the developer will. But in this case, there's no developer to go to partner with these repairs.
Well, just like you said, the citizens that bought the houses in there paid to have a road built, and the price of those lots, subdivision's about 15 years old, they've been paying taxes 15 years. Any repairs that we end up having to do a little here and there has definitely been paid for. So I say, once we have further discussion, it's an easy decision.
This is like a Rita Farm. Did that happen? Motion.
Make a motion that we go with alternative number 1, staff approval.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Floyd. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve a contract with CHA for final design services for the new recreational facility.
This is a new project y'all haven't heard much about. We just slipped in under the radar. As all of y'all know, we've been working on this for quite some time. When we started out with 119, some improvements out there, you all went out and looked and came up with another piece of property. We've done some master plan, now we've done some master plan, and now it's time to do the final plans to get this going. And I know King's here, he can speak to some of this, but basically CHA's provided us with a proposal. And I want to tell you what you're looking at. We've broken this up a little bit differently than the original one that came in, and I'll tell you why we did it. This proposal is for the architecture for the field support building and the maintenance facility. The gym is not in it, and it's for all of the other site elements that were in phase 1. It has CHA responsible for the sports design, landscape architecture, electrical engineering, sports field, site lighting, project management, and I think if you get on down here, it was on landscape, what it says in landscape and irrigation and so forth. And the idea under this proposal that you have for the dollars at the bottom was for our staff to do the basic civil, the generic civil, if you will, the grading outside of the sports fields, the roads, the water, the sewer, those sorts of things. And they've offered to do that, and you'll see at the very bottom, there's a line, optional services. They have a price to include that in there. So you all have that option. We can do it. You can put it in their proposal to do that. The reason that we left the gym out of this proposal, the idea was to go ahead and get this going and started, and we're going to come back to y'all pretty soon with the construction manager at risk proposal RFP. Fiona's got done, we're just looking at the ending touches. And what we're hoping that does is bring a contractor on earlier in the process so we can talk about this with them, value engineer it a little bit, and speed the process up more on the, put it on the front end rather than the back, so that we can get under construction sooner. As you all know, we have that piece of property that we surplus. We need to get some certain infrastructure there to be able to move on that. And additionally, that'll get us going. And then what we hope to do is to get our cost fixed for all of those pieces. If you go backwards, you remember the schematic design estimate was $9.6 million. You all have around 8, just shy of 8, 7, 8 or something like that to do it. So we're still a little bit short between the schematic design estimate and our funding. So what we hope to do is to get all of these costs in place, because the biggest cost overrun, if you will, between master plan and schematic was in the gym. It went from $1 million to $3 million. So that $2 million kind of sits in the gym and the things that we added out there. So what we hope to do is get our costs solidified and then to do design on the gym. That way we know what we're designing, whether it's the full gym, whether we have to do some shelf space in it, or cut something back in the front end. That's why we separated it. All of that being said, we've looked at it. We're still optimistic that we can deliver the product that you all want within that budget. For a couple of things that are reference to surplus, we've got a couple of grant applications out there. So we'll just see what all that comes back, and that buys us some time to know more what we're doing. So that is the reason the gym's not in there. That's the logic of what we're doing. And with that said, you all have a lot of decisions to make. Do you want to go down that path? Do you want CHA to do the civil portion of this project? And again, you can see the numbers. $61,400 is what you save by doing it that way. And then again, if the construction manager at risk, we want to have some discussion at some point with y'all too about that, who's the selection team and going forward and all. So I've said a lot, now I'll stop and let y'all have questions.
Well, if I was to make the statement that it would be my desire to award the contract for 193.4 this evening, which would mean that staff would be doing the civil this afternoon, is there anything that you would say to me that I'd be making a mistake in making that decision?
I don't believe so, Chairman. I mean, it's all priorities. Right now with the staff that we have, that would mean this will become our priority from some of the other things that we discussed. Railroad track, some of those things, getting it done. Doesn't mean it's the only thing we can do. It just means it's just to be our priority. Now, yours is done. I mean, that's over with. As far as civils go, I mean, we still, we got to bid it, but he's got the civil complete. It's sitting off to the side. We'll make sure we had that done first.
So we got somebody can do this without any problems?
Yes, sir. It will not affect the schedule of that fire station at all. That civil part is done. Again, we've got to bid it. We got to get that product out there and, actually bid the vertical, but, and most of that's done. It's just getting the bid document. We were able to go back to the same MEP and all, and get that. It's just update the documents.
I'm not about, I'm about saving money, but I'm not about slowing it down. To me, we've drove this thing out long enough, so, but this thing is so far over our budget, so I'm trying to whittle it down so we can move it forward. But I don't want to.
I go in this route. I think the biggest savings may not be just in those fees, but being in the driver's seat.
That's
right.
Right.
With the design, that we can gain some efficiencies in our design and being able to make those calls.
What I think it's going to do for us is be able to break. That's why I want to get a CM on board, because I can break it up, because the sports fields and all may not be done with the roads on. We may can go ahead and get the design done on the roads, cut them loose on that, so we can shore that out parcel up, get the water and sewer in, while they're preparing plans for, you know, the sports fields, the bleachers, the bleacher covers, the, like, you know, all of those details that we want to make sure are absolutely right before we go in there. You know, roads are roads, we just need to get grade on them. So I think we can bring the project along a lot more quickly, actually, that way, because we'll probably start with some of the first elements prior to them ever being complete on sports fields.
Well, that's why I asked the question, so that you could elaborate and tell me that I was making the right call.
I believe it will speed us up, and when I say the right call, I'm certainly not suggesting they can't adequately.
Let me assure you, it makes no difference to us whatsoever.
Yeah.
Our only reason we put it in there is if he had other priorities that were just urgent, we wanted y'all to know we could do it, but it's not something that's crucial to us at all.
And you're gonna do just as good a job for us if we don't have it in there?
Absolutely.
Well, and let me say this.
Hey, I'm cutting to the chase, you understand?
What is important to us is that CHA stay involved in the sports field. I don't do sports field design.
You know what you're doing with that.
Yes, sir.
Our staff knows what they're doing.
We do the
with
stuff
us.
under the ground that nobody ever sees. That's the stuff that we specialize
We
in.
do the pretty stuff, he does the hard stuff.
We need these gentlemen to bring on the good stuff.
But it's not something that affects us in any way, so don't think, well, we're not awarding that to CHA. That's not an emotional issue to us at all, the other is.
If we got somebody can do it, and we can save $61,000, we can do something else with that $61,000.
Well, in all of this discussion, I don't think it's just the 61. I think we can move it forward faster and get it done.
All right.
Okay. Well, through all of this, if the commission feels good about it, I would love to have a motion to move this thing forward and go that direction for it.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with CHA for final design services for the 193-4 for the new recreation facility and staff providing civil design alternative number 1.
Who got the second? All right. Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Kiefer. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? We moving forward. Thank y'all.
We trusted y'all to know we actually already started.
I have one suggestion. I was actually at Sand Hill, our other park, Friday evening with my family watching my nephew play school baseball. They had a tournament there. And not having a kids, because I have a 3-year-old, not having a kids playground place, because it's stuck way, way out. He couldn't even play on the playground because there was nobody around. We need to look at a playground close to the bleachers.
Close enough
Just
that
throwing that out there as a friend.
when the parents are sitting here watching the kids
They can watch
play
kids
on the
and-
field, they can see the smaller ones playing on the playground.
Y'all would just quit having some babies. I'm just
I'm listening to you.
Good having you.
You know, the grandchildren.
That's not what's called.
Well, folks, I want to thank y'all. You know, time goes by so fast, but when you sit here and look at these days, man, I tell you what, it's been a while coming, hasn't it?
Yeah. We get there.
Groundbreaking this Friday. Looking forward to it. Does our press have anything else to do this Friday?
Is it
3 o'clock?
Is it 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock? Think y'all can make it?
I have a serious nap scheduled for that time.
What's new?
I'll give you a wake-up call.
We'll have you a cot there. All right. Next item, consideration to approve a location agreement with the Springfield Garden Club for the use of the Early Street House.
As stated, the Springfield Garden Club would like to use the Early Street House on April.
16.
Okay, I got 2 issues in this we need to fix then. April 16th, for a doll show in Exhibit R. That's in conjunction with we'll change the name on that. Old Days in Effingham on April 16th. And if you look on number 2 term, I put April 16th. I forgot to put the date, so I need to add April 16th in there. And then under payment, I left that blank because I didn't really want to make a suggestion. You all have any ideas what you want to charge them for the use of this facility?
I don't think we already charged anything.
I'm told by my attorney that's illegal.
I'm sorry?
So I believe the
What's the
attorney
minimum?
thinks that we have to
$1
charge
or
something.
$10?
It just gets into whether it's, donation or gratuity, and it has to be a benefit to the public. So I think we need to charge them something more as a minimum fee.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a big amount of money, but just so that we're charging them something.
Such as what is your recommendation?
I really don't have a recommendation on the amount.
$10, $20?
I would think it would be in the $100 or more range.
They probably would do that now, I mean, it's just a garden club, I mean, they don't have any money with it anyway.
I don't know, this is the first I've heard. I know that when we did it at the school board, I thought that we did allow it to be, the purpose was to get everybody on the same page if we were going to, let it be used at no cost. But I didn't understand that that was going to be a problem and no cost. If it is, we're going to have to decide a minimum amount that we require.
And we have a policy that Lee's drafted. It hasn't been to you all, obviously, and this is ahead of it, so this is kind of charting that territory. Because of the timing of the request, we do have a policy that you've been asking for. We will get to you, and we can put all that information in it. But unfortunately, this one's ahead of the policy, so
Is there an estimated minimum policy that y'all are recommending for a minimum?
that there's not at this time. There's still some things we're working out. He drafted it last week, and we're still looking at it.
We used it for 5 or 6 years, and we never paid anything on it.
Right, it's kind of like into the situation we had with the chamber, and
Well, they have to provide a contract for services, and I understand that, but I guess my thinking here is, if we deemed that this is a benefit to the public, and we're willing to allow different groups to do it, we have the contract for services, so we're getting a value, because the goal is that we get some type of value, but our value is that they're putting on the thing, we're not, and we're letting them use it to benefit the public, so I'm trying to be as easygoing about the amount as possible.
yeah, that's a policy issue, that's within your purview, on whether it's a benefit to the public.
Well, the thing that's being shown to us is the only cost to us is going to be the utility cost. And so if they're going to use it for one day, what would we estimate our utility costs be? Because we'd be recouping our costs that way. So what would we estimate one day of utility cost to be in that building?
I'm thinking $25.
That's why, I mean, if it were a $300 a month bill, you're talking $10 a day on average, roughly. So
That's what I'm saying. I think we could make it not minimal, we may have to hash it out further for future, but I think we could be pretty.
They'll spend, the people that come there, they'll spend a bunch of money in Effingham County. There's a lot of people, well, to me, it'd be economic. It'd be good for the county, for all those people that come to Effingham.
If the goal wasn't to make it where they can't use it, the goal is to make it where everybody's treated fair. So
$25.
I say $25 is a fair amount.
I don't think we ought to have it over there.
somebody else would want to say that. There.
Just to simply justifying recouping any possible cost for that period of time using it.
Yeah.
And the only other thing to point out is number 9, insurance. There is a requirement for them to hold insurance on. I just don't know their makeup, whether they have that or not. We have to go buy a policy. I just don't know whether they will carry it or not.
Probably don't.
They're not gonna have them,
General liability
they're not
policy.
gonna have $1 million.
And I think you said you checked, Lee, on one of these.
I did, and it's kind of like, for example, like a wedding policy. It's a day of event of policy, like $1 million general liability, or I think it was $175.
People like that's not,
They ain't gonna do that.
Once they can get some donor to donate that.
Yeah, but I just want y'all to understand that that's in this agreement, so.
Otherwise, do we have, the same scenario, do we have coverage then? Do we have coverage that if we figure that it's just like the utilities? I don't know.
here again,
This is a point of hashing out all this stuff.
If somebody falls down on that property at any time, they're coming after whoever's having the event and us because it's our property. And, you know, they're coming after everybody anyhow.
To a degree, that's the cost of the government having the facility for the public to use.
That's right.
You know, so-
But then again, they're going to have to show that we were negligent, which is going to be, was there a stair there, a step that they fell on that we knew was bad, that we didn't fix, or?
Same thing as all other.
I built a handrail on that, on the house myself. So we wouldn't have it.
Take that off the public record. Take it. We need to,
I'm a good builder.
we need to order that thing off right now.
Okay, for expediency's sake, do we want to strike that requirement? Because we feel like that, you know, we're gonna have liability anyway. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think about that's part of the use of the large, the small and medium room in there. Because I think both political parties use it.
And we don't require that, so you're saying?
Yeah, and I'm not proposing a charge, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, and again, this would all be hashed out in that policy, and I apologize, the
Yeah.
timing of
Okay,
this
so
would
we-
predate that, but,
We had a birthday party over next door here.
I'm okay with
Yeah, we-
this, for myself, I'm okay with the $25 and for striking the insurance requirement.
I'll second that.
Has anybody else feel differently?
and as far as the term, I've got it here, April 16th, 7 a.m. to 8. I don't know that it would hurt to have them sooner or later. I think we'd be flexible. Again, that's what I put arbitrarily. I was trying to give them the entire package. Now, if we need to change that from April 15th to April 17th or something, that's, you know, within y'all's purview too.
I think we can just allow staff to have the flexibility needed to help them.
Okay. So again, with those two changes, particularly under the term, if you would please, you know, April 16th to $25, and then whether or not y'all choose to strike the insurance is, you know, obviously up to y'all.
I presume that policy is going to, I guess, define public benefit or benefit to the public somewhat, so.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, this is kind of a situation that you described with the Effingham days. You got the public there. What happens when it's another nonprofit that may not benefit
The overall community.
the overall community? And
Those are the
how
things that you have to look at and try to get in that policy.
So you got to go gets to the insurance. I mean, you guys, because they're gonna look at this and say, well, It's just
I'd like recommendations on this, like,
that's exactly what I gave you. That's my recommendation, that insurance for that reason.
I understand.
And then you make the decision. So I'm just throwing that other scenario out because I think it's kind of easy to make the decision about this garden club with Old Effingham Days in conjunction with it, because now we've got a mass of folks there, but that's all.
And we might, I mean, as far as, we might need to consider it in one of our workshops, because when it gets down to it, just like Commissioner Kiefer just mentioned, we let people use that room down there all the time, and not just the two parties, but others will use it. And so there's probably, when we think about it, there's probably all different types of facilities that we're allowing different things to take place in, and we need to try to figure that out.
I think it's a good idea to have a workshop because you're right, there's more than one building and facility we have,
Yep.
different uses, and
Yep.
so that would be good.
Won't cover it. Think about tasting it. Think about
Is that the chamber? Is it chamber got Taste of Effingham under their purview?
It's actually in our agreement with the
Yeah,
chamber.
yeah, that's what I was saying.
think about it.
So we don't make it get $110.
That's what I'm saying, we need to think about this and just figure out if we're safe, we're doing what we're doing, then that's fine.
You
But
will never cover it. But for this agreement, or is the board okay with having this location agreement for this venue, striking the insurance, $25 and that day? Because that's actually the item that's on here for consideration.
I'm fine with it.
All right, somebody give me a motion.
Make a motion that we approve this agreement with a couple of changes. Item number 2, under term, we specify the date as April 16th. Item number 3, we specify the payment as $25, whereas we deem that to cover our costs. And item number 9, for insurance and certificate, we will waive that requirement in this case.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Collins, second by Commissioner Wilson. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, we're going to have a discussion on the Effingham Parkway. Actually, we can't discuss it on the parkway because it doesn't exist, but we'll have a discussion about it. How about that?
As you all know, here, I guess the end of January, we were told that funding for this parkway would be House Bill 170 or state funding. That changed a couple of the parameters of things that we were previously unable to do to things that we can now do. And I bring this up because I've heard people mention it. This is something, a decision I can't make. You all will have to. Under federal funding, federal highway will not allow you to acquire 4 lanes of right-of-way unless you have funding on the additional 2 lanes. For 2-lane section, you just can't do it. Under state funds, it is possible to do acquisition of 4 lanes of right-of-way and build 2. And it's completely up to you all as to how we proceed going forward. What I just have to tell y'all is what happens if we do that is basically we go back to where we were last November. When the field work was done for the survey for the ecology, historical, archaeological, it was done based on the footprint of a 2-lane section. So they'll have to go back and do the field work again, if you will, for the additional width of right-of-way. We'll have to go back to the concept report and amend it to say 4 lanes. It shouldn't be a long process, but it is different. That's in that concept report. We'll have to have it reapproved. And the VE study that you all just approved, we need to see if we can cancel because that will be for naught. We'll have to start over it again. So it's a decision for you all to make at this point, and you don't have to do it tonight, but we need to make it fairly soon before we get too far down the road as to whether or not you want to pursue that path or not. It's time and money is what it comes out to be.
Sure gives me a chest pain to hear that.
We don't have no choice, do we? I mean, what?
Now, we got plenty of choices. I mean,
Well, yeah.
the traffic model suggested in the 20-year planning horizon, it'll suffice for 2 lanes. I mean, you've got some time to do it. You can always acquire later.
Okay, basically, the short version gets it down to like this. Had we known originally, of course, the smartest thing to do would have been to spend the money for everything that we needed right up front to do the 4 lanes, but because the federal funding was where the money was coming from, we weren't basically allowed to do that. So we proceeded as we could, and then now that it's changed, it's like, do we go back and start over and re-spend that money and spend that time again to do what we would have done in the first place had we been able to probably, or do we go ahead and move forward? And moving forward would mean we go ahead and build a 2-lane and kick the can down the road for somebody else to worry about the money and the easements and the requirements when they get ready to need the 4-lane.
Exactly. It's very accurate. Until January 25th, when it was announced we had that funding, it was not an option. There was never an alternative for you all to do anything differently. So the choice that you made was the only one that you could make at the time. You now have the ability to do something different. And I'm really asking for input. I can tell you GDOT's opinion, they don't like it. When I brought it up the other day, it was just silence, and it took quite a while for anybody to regain speech.
Well, they don't like the idea. They want to.
They don't like the idea of going back to ground zero because they're very metric driven and they're schedule driven. And this hurts their schedules and their metrics, and they don't like it.
What is our timeline going forward right where we are?
They're looking at right-of-way authorization April of 17 and a let in August of 18, which means you'll go to construction August of 18.
April 17 right away.
Yes, sir.
April of 18,
August of 18.
August.
But the other thing this will do is when the Corps looks at it, they're going to look at this as impacts. Why else would you buy a right of way if you don't intend to disturb it?
I'm telling you, I'm scared to death of the idea of holding up the project
Yeah.
and throwing kinks in the project. The people are ready way yesterday, so.
The other thing, by looking at the additional impacts, it may put you into a PAR very well, which is a practical alternatives report, which means we then have to go out and look at 3 different alignments. There's work that does, it's time, it's money. I understand the need, and you're exactly right, Commissioner Jones. Had this been available from day one, this is what we should have and would have pursued. It would have been the smart path. But where we sit today, you're liable to add another year to this thing.
All right, so where we're at,
I don't think so.
from Goshen Road to Blue Jay, we have
5, I believe.
5 tracks
I believe that's correct.
and no problem.
Shouldn't be. They're all large tracks that should be easy, you know, to acquire from. Easier anyhow. It's from Goshen side.
And all of those can basically be dealt with through zoning restrictions or
I would think so.
in the future.
I would think so.
From Goshen Road back, at least to the county line, is either wet and can be pretty easily dealt with.
There shouldn't be a lot of future development because most of it is wet through there. It is the largest concentration of parcels because you got Cold Brook Plantation through there.
But what we're building, there's still room, and there's still,
Yes, for future.
but there's still no structures or anything like that that we would impact to.
Not today, not unless something changes because of the geometry of those larger lots and all. I would think I'm not gonna tell you no, but you're fairly safe.
And frankly, for the most part, if you build a 2-lane, people aren't gonna build at that point, then right up close to it, understanding that long-term goal is for it to be a 4-lane. I mean, everybody's gonna understand that at that point, so. I think we need to move forward.
We keep going. Do we?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we better, people are gonna string us up every
There
traffic.
is no reason to start this process over.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I just didn't want to make that decision. I couldn't make that decision on my own and then.
I understand
because I know it's been
you
talked
asking the
about.
question and what the good thinking process was if we could have originally, and if we, but
If we were on the front end, I would advise you completely different. Go with the 4 lanes of right of way and let's not have to deal with this in the future.
Well, that would be a no-brainer.
Yeah,
But
but because of where we're sitting today, it's gonna be a time delay, it's gonna be a dollar delay,
we don't want to hold GDOT up, they will have
and we've had plenty of those since 2005.
it. We have.
We're in a position today to really deliver this by, by August of 2018, we should be under construction.
The number one question from anybody that asks me is when is it starting? It's the number one question.
I was hoping we would start right-of-way acquisition by the end of 16, because that was a date that I thought we were targeting to begin with.
I don't know that we ever, I've heard a lot of dates, but all I can say from a planning standpoint, we've never had one because we never reworked the schedule until now. So any other day I can't speak to, I don't know where it came from.
It still is the planning scenario that we don't let our end until Chatham County has started towards us, is that correct?
That should end up being the case because Chatham County originally, I think, was looking to go on, be in construction by mid this year. They're probably not tracking quite there. We met with someone in the courthouse extension the other day who's going to actually help them acquire the parcels and they haven't started yet. So, but I think it'll be an easy acquisition because most of it was reserved right away. They knew what was coming. So they probably will not be under construction mid this year, but they'll definitely be under construction. They should be under construction ahead of us unless something changes drastically.
that was on a point that was explained to people about, no, we're not building a road to nowhere.
Correct. And we have a TCC meeting tomorrow. Hopefully Nathaniel and Pamela will be there, and I usually ask them at those and the status update, so I should know more tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, that all the discussion you want?
That's all I need, Chairman. I just needed some direction. Again, I've heard people mention it in the past, and there was just, it's above my pay grade to make that decision.
I think every single thing discussed tonight's in the district.
I think we need to move forward with it. Two names. All right.
Okay.
Next item, consideration to approve the 2016 short-term work program project budget funding for fiscal year 2015-16.
Yes, sir. If you remember in our discussion at the retreat, we went back and looked at the budget that we have within our short-term work program, especially the consideration for funding for the recreation projects. And in that, we presented to y'all, and it's in the package tonight, the spreadsheet of what those estimates are and proposed changes based off of projects that have already been completed and an update of our current funding as far as BOC is concerned. You will see in about the middle of the page, you'll see a proposed December 2015. Those were the changes that staff requested as far as the individual funding of these projects. You will see right in the middle of the page the new project estimates, and then a timeline for years 1 through 5 as far as what we have already done and paid for and what we have remaining. The adjustments basically are to increase the overall projected funding, to increase that funding in large part to the recreation project itself. And so we ask for your approval of this same exact spreadsheet that we presented at the retreat.
You got Berryville, you have Berryville on here, so that money that you got in here for Berryville reverted still well?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just left the name as Berryville, it's the new Berryville, if you will, but that's still, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Same with Desi Zero. I think it's still on the Desi Zero here, which is the Cotton Kelvin, I think. What I looked at, I think we did that
Yes.
same way.
And we did make some changes in that funding, moving things around to make sure that we had enough funding for each one of those, I believe. Yes.
This was like what we discussed in Atlanta, other.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, part of the reason for that, Commissioner Lover, is we try to, because things change so much over a 5-year period, that's why she's got the original and the track. We're trying to see where it all came from. So because it started with Odessa and Berryville, we just left the name the same. So,
Yeah, I figured that, but that's when
but that's the reason, just so we understand the history of where it came from. But yes, sir, that will be still.
And that we can answer your questions of what we did and when we did it and how we did it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion?
Make a motion, we approve staff recommendation, alternative number 1.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Loper. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the first reading to amend the continuing budget ordinance for July 1, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
Yes, sir. Again, as we discussed at the retreat, and we went through so many things there, but one of the discussions was on our budget ordinance and clarifying pieces of the language that we had in there. And if you will look on page 3 of the budget ordinance, we clarified the language regarding the fact that this last year, we moved that legal level of control to the department and allowing the administrator to effect changes in those budgets. And so we added additional language to clarify that point. And then also on page 4, we added additional language to clarify the review and authorization to use forfeitures as a reduction in current expense and repayment regarding the retirement funds.
Any questions? Lots of moving pieces. I'll give you a motion.
Make a motion to approve order number 1.
Motion by Commissioner Loper, second by Commissioner Floyd. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve conference-related costs for the 2016 ACCG conference in Savannah.
Is there any for discussion?
Everybody going? This is the close one. No reason for anybody not to go to this. I'm going. Get you out.
April 29th, May 2nd.
You want us to look and decide on classes?
That would be good. That would be great.
I can't keep up with what I
Pat,
add. I probably know what I've added, but they changed their names now.
Call Kitty, she'll get it.
well, we have access to it. I can print it out for you.
Yeah,
Or
they're
you
really
can
good.
see. Yeah.
Find out what I need. Let me know. All right, I'll give you a motion.
Make a motion to approve order number 1.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Floyd, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to appoint Lucy Powell to the Aging Services Advisory Council.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. One of the functions of the Coastal Regional Commission is to provide programs for older adults and caregivers in our region. Mr. Lloyd Dees was that appointee, and as you all may be aware, he is deceased. He did pass a few weeks ago. Commissioner Deloche spoke with Ms. Lucy Powell, who did express interest in being appointed to that position. So staff is asking for appointment of Ms. Lucy to fulfill Mr. Dees' term, which will expire June 30th, 2017.
President Dees will be missed.
Well, I make a motion to appoint Lucy Powell as a member to the Aging Services Advisory Council.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kiefer, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Have I missed anything?
You got it.
That's it.
That's it.
I love a good plan that works. I love a good plan that works.
I am told that we
Thank
don't.
y'all. See you Friday.
All righty.
Bring your shovel.
You're bringing all the golden shovels, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Wearing hard hats?
I'm told we don't need executive session. No?
I don't know,
Oh, I have to tell you what.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Mr. Jack, it would not be a meeting if you didn't say something.
And it's probably gonna be good. Jack Godwin from Clive. Folks, thank y'all very much for all the great roads we see in Effingham County. Really thank every one of you, because they really look good. I tell you what, it's, and the citizens even talking about it. I mean, it's, y'all made a hit, I tell you. Thank y'all.
Keep us up here, Mr. Jack.
Huh?
Keep us up here.
Yeah, we're gonna try.
Thank you, sir. All right. What you got, Mr. Thomas?
you all should have had 2 sheets that look like this in your box.
What's the difference in the two?
They're just, it's a continuation. They didn't all fit on one well, so it's not exactly true. These are all system safety projects, as y'all, I'm sure are aware. The amended FY16 budget, because of HB 170 had additional monies. LMIG is a percentage of state of motor fuel taxes that are collected, so because there were more motor fuel taxes, there was more LMIG money. So the way they chose to give it out was through this all-system safety project. There's $2.5 million in D5, and we intend to get off as much of it as we can. So what we're led to believe is it's sort of first come, first served, so we're trying to get this done and out of here. There's a list of roads. The first one is striping, signage, widening, and or flashing beacons. The second one is more intersection related. That's really the difference, Commissioner Keefe, of the two. And the second page is all system to own system roads, and they're a little more difficult to get into. So we wanted to break them out in 2 lists, honestly, so one didn't get hung up on the other.
Do you have an extra copy? Because I didn't know it was in my box, so I haven't been in my box yet.
I know where we can start at striking.
I don't own me, but I will definitely get you one.
Forrest doesn't have this.
Just go bring it along.
We can share one.
But basically, we don't have to get it turned into today. Those are what we as staff came up with. We want to make sure it's what you all see. And if there's any that you see that aren't on there, we want to make sure they get added. That's basically what it is. And when you get it, you'll see on the far left column is the road name, and there's a from and to. So look at, where it starts or where it ends. Don't worry so much about the stuff to the right. It's metric driven. There's crash history and ADTs and stuff out there. It's just supporting data just to go along the roadways. And keep in mind too, there was a previous list of all system safety that's already been approved. I need to get you all that list as well. That's supposed to start in the next couple of months. It's supposed to go into construction. This has to be at least let, if not finished by the end of the year. So I'll get you the other list too. You need to know that, so you know what's already been approved. So we don't need it on this list. And the one that's missing is courthouse in Midland. I got it written on mine.
The one that's missing is what?
Courthouse in Midland, that intersection. It's not on here, so I've written on the bottom of mine, so.
Randy, do you have yours?
Yeah, I got one.
And again, well, don't worry about it. If we have ones that duplicate the other list, we'll make sure they don't come on. We just want to make sure we got them all. But what you all are seeing out there is actually accurately captured, so. I'd rather ask for too many right now. We're asking for 58.5 miles.
Yeah.
They'll tell us yes or no. So I'd rather ask for more than we won't get. We've actually asked for Old Augusta. One of the things we're trying to figure out Fort Howard and Old Augusta. Y'all may have noticed we've recently got the delineators up in the right turn lane to help people see if they're in the turn lane or not. We'll be getting rumble strips up there on the Fort Howard Road approaching it. And one of the things that's asked for here is the flashing beacons. The flashing either side of it. But we also are going to put on the other list a complete roundabout in that intersection. probably a far cry, because it's $250,000 by itself, and although 2.5 is a big number, when you take a quarter out just for us, it don't go that far. So we want to ask for some of these things, but more likely be the flashing beacon side of it. So
I talked to you about McCall Road, where it runs into Blue Jay Road. I talked to you about this before. The fella called me again, wanted to know what we were gonna do about it. You said we could put some rumble strips there or something. He said they have a lot of accidents. They come in, running right across the road over there.
there's one called Chairman Kessler about that.
Pardon?
Somebody called Chairman Kessler about the same thing the last week or so.
Yeah. I had him call me twice now. So you said it'd be pretty easy to put some rumble strips or something in there, right?
It would.
Well, we need to do that.
Yeah, they missed the chevrons and we're right on out in the field.
Charles, was there still something we were going to be able to try to do at Old Augusta, whether it's something you want to add to this list or not? So I just thought I'd mention it right here.
Just make a sheriff's report.
We had talked about possibly, if nothing else, putting up those, things so people could see.
They're all.
We did?
Mhm.
Awesome. What's that called?
I don't know. I call them delineators because I honestly don't know what they're called.
That's good enough.
I'll send you a picture of it.
When was that done?
Last week before,
Awesome.
Skinny cones?
skinny cones.
It's something though, so that's good, great. Thank you.
Those are up. The rumble strips had not been put up at that time.
But you know, it makes sense to use they're fluorescent orange rather than those things like Shannon County coming off of 30 on the 21 that's white that people keep knocking down. These here, you can see them.
It was Old Augusta and Chimney, right?
No, Old Augusta Fort Highland.
Okay. Okay, you're right. Yes.
Well, the main thing is for each of y'all to look in your districts and each of the roads that y'all are familiar with and see if there's anything you want to add to these.
Yeah, exactly. I unfortunately spend most of my day behind a desk right over in this corner, and I can tell you every road is bad in my office. Outside of that, I don't have a great beat on it. So if y'all could help us now, and let me say, it's not just striping, but it's also widening. So if you have a road that's too narrow, let us know, and we get widening. What we're trying to do there is couple it with resurfacing. They need to be resurfaced fairly soon after that, or that joint starts failing. So, but if you have one that's too narrow, let us know. We can do a 2-foot widening, and also that's part of the program.
Okay.
So again, just look at the list. Anything that's missing, let us know. We'll get on there. We'll let it sit for a week or two. Then we need to get it turned in so we can get in the deal there. Going on to your committee reports, the first one, ACCG is doing some water tours. And these are water production tours, drinking water production tours. There's one in Metro Atlanta and one in South Georgia. Each of them is 2 days long. If you go on it, they'll give you 6 hours of continuing education per tour. So if you went on both, you can get 12 hours. The fee is $50, and that includes the bus transportation. There's gonna be a big bus that put everybody on the haul around. And all of the meals, you have to pay for your hotel rooms. So if you all want to go to that, we can get you signed up for it. This is what we call for reply. Hearing none, we move on. I'm going to skip number 2 for a second because this can take a bit of discussion. Chamber, the board of the Effingham County Chamber of Commerce is looking for nominations. They are open until 5 p.m. on March 23rd. If you all have someone you want to nominate, they just have to either be a member of the chamber or an employee of a member of the chamber to be eligible to be on the board. D-Firm Community Coordination, this should be on the calendars, I would assume the clerk has on there, but on April 21st, 2:30 to 4, there's going to be a meeting for local elected officials and local government officials and staff. That will be held in this room that we're sitting in right now. EPD and their consultants will be here. They want to give you all a presentation. This is on the coastal side. It's not the entire county, but they've made updates to the firm maps, the flood maps on the coastal side. The park is influenced by coastal flooding, not the riverine side, or influenced by rivers. So those changes in the map will be, again, 2:30 to 4 right here. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll go down the end of the hall and have a public open house where it'll be open to the public to come through. they'll have displays set up and so forth, and it's led by EPD, but the part for you all, I mean, you're certainly welcome to stay for both, but, you know, the informational piece for y'all is 2:30 to 4. Again, in this room, March 21st. There's an email in here from a citizen concerning tornado sirens that you all can read. And just a quick reminder, we have the joint planning meeting that we've been having every other month with the cities. Will be next Monday, the 7th, is that correct? At Lost Plantation. Beginning at 6:30, Lost Plantation. So Rankin's hosting it to answer that shortly. At Lost Plantation, beginning 6:30 to 7th, I believe is that day, next Monday.
What is that next Monday?
Yes, sir.
That's not on here?
It's
No,
not,
it's not.
sorry.
Okay, next Monday at what time?
Beginning at 6:30. And you were supposed to receive an invite. I didn't see it go out, so I can send y'all one, or
I haven't seen
Wanda indicated she was going to. But Stephanie, Stephanie and I will do it tomorrow. We'll get y'all invites out for that. Just want to remind y'all, because and I already made these. Go back to number 2, the tentative SPLOS calendar. There's a calendar in here of events leading up to the next SPLOS referendum. And the reason I wanted to discuss it tonight, I can get it. Page 10 of 14 is where it's at. It is basically, if you take the referendum date, which would be November the 8th, general election, you can follow the timeline backwards. We have some latitude in parts of this, the amount of time around the meetings and so forth, but pretty much if you look, it begins now. You know, we're almost there to start having these discussions. So I wanted to bring it up for 2 reasons. One, we'll put this on your next agenda to be voted on, so y'all can officially vote on it. But being that your next meeting is the 15th, and the notice goes out to the cities to start having a meeting on the 18th, I want to go ahead and bring it up. I didn't want to give you 3 days notice, so that you all knew. And the way this thing is structured is that now staff is working on pulling together a list of SPLOS projects. If you all will recall, the short-term work program as it's currently contemplated was to do all of those projects within that 5-year period. In other words, if the SPLOS never passes, we can finish them all. So theoretically, when this SPLOS passes, your short-term work program that you just approved will have nothing on it. It will be completely gone. There are a few caveats to that, but theoretically, that's where you'll end up. There should be very few projects on it. Obviously, recreation will be hanging around for a while for the build-out of it, but most of those will be gone. So in order to accomplish this, what we'd like to do is not only vote on this calendar on the 15th, but have a workshop on the 15th ahead of your meeting to discuss those projects as contemplated by staff. So that will let staff give you all this, give you time to think about that, make your suggestions back to that list as we're waiting on the meeting, which would be somewhere beginning on the 28th. Because we got to give 10 days notice. So we notify them on the 18th, somewhere between the 28th and the 21st of the following month, we would have some meetings scheduled. So that's why, you know, if you all are okay with having that workshop, again, it's just to get y'all the list so that y'all can start looking at it, begin the process of voting on the calendar. It's just a short time frame from how we want to get it started. And then from there, we'll have some time to talk about the other. You can see them there.
What time do you need the workshop to start?
4 will be fine, I think. I don't think it'll take more than an hour. We want to give you all a list. Again, you don't have to give input that day. We just want to discuss them. You'll have plenty of time to give feedback from them to think about it.
4 o'clock.
If that's okay with y'all, we'll schedule a 4 o'clock workshop.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And then as soon as you all look at this and are fine, and Lee's looked at it, I think we're okay here on the dates. We'll get it to the cities too, so that they know what to be looking for time-wise. We'll start with discussion. That's all I should do.
So the 28th would be, we have a workshop
It doesn't have to be on the 28th. We have to give the cities 10 days notice prior to the meetings. The way that it's set up is between the 28th of March and the 21st of April, which is, also roughly a month. We have that time for workshops, anticipating that we need more than one with the cities is what that's for, so that we can hold 2 or 3 in that timeline. But we need the intergovernmental agreements approved by the 21st, so that we can get it on the 3rd agenda, your all agenda, to vote on that, so that we can get it off by the 6th to the DOJ for pre-clearance. And then we're anticipating 2 months, and I don't know that to be accurate or not, but based on the last time we did this in 10, we built in 2 months to get pre-clearance from DOJ before it can go to the election superintendent to actually issue the call. So there's a little bit of time there, but the meeting can be on the 28th, it can be sometime, as long as it's between there and the 21st of the following month. But we want time for more than one meeting, and we would hope we're not back to back.
But we don't want to cut it too close.
No, sir.
In case.
No, sir. I would suggest we track as early to the beginning of this as we can.
Okay. All right, yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Contacted Stephanie today. I need to get, we still have cleanup crews that can take care of trash along the roadways.
Yeah.
Over on Sand Hill and over at Sand Hill Ballpark. I understand there's a load of carpet that's been dumped that I thought had already been cleaned up.
Sand Hill Road and Sand Hill Ballpark.
Ballpark.
And just so you all know, the way that process has been working, and this was a broker deal between the two, they think it works better than we do too. The litter pickup is scheduled by Public Works, because they're the ones that do the road. So yeah, yes, they have a crew through the prison, but we'll schedule it through Public Works, just so you all know how that works. It works easier because Public Works is helping us track our MS4 inventory too, and we have to track litter pickup and all. So rather than, it just eliminates the middleman. And the wardens, again, they had that discussion.
But carpet specifically, and I gave Stephanie the citizen's contact number, so we can make sure we get that. The other thing is I went to the meeting last night about this harbor deepening project, and the Corps of Engineers is full steam ahead with that, and hasn't really notified us, but there's going to be a lot more traffic. Actually, we're going to do all the dirt for this project's coming out of Effingham. There's going to be heavier traffic on both 30 through Hodgeville, and not Hodgeville. Well, 30 mainly back in Goshen Road, but they're going off of Midland. I asked, and Old Augusta, there's 2 bar pits, but it's a huge project. They said the average turn time for these dump trucks, they're going to be turning around 1 minute from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day.
But where is this?
It's at Rice Stove, right there.
Okay, it's not,
This is
we have
Fort
control
Wentworth.
of Fort Wentworth.
Right.
Okay, that's what's
But it's going to
confusing.
affect our citizens due to this
I see.
traffic.
I see.
And it's going to be at the same time fixing to start on this converging diamond project up there at 95. It's just, we need to get some more information to get out to the public.
Yeah, but this traffic won't go through the DDI because of where it's at. The initial material's coming from Old Augusta Road. So to go up Old Augusta 21 to Rice Creek, it won't go through 21. Ultimately, it'll come off Midland. But that's when the material's exhausted on Old Augusta, whenever that is. And, it's an 18-month period where they won't be hauling, and I told the guy hauling everything.
Okay.
So I don't think they will be hauling solid for 18 months. There's an initial phase of building the road. Then there'll be some work, then they'll come back, is the way that it was described to me.
It just needs to be communicated to our citizens because what I understood over there off of Midland, there's going to be a lot of traffic up and down, our folks coming out of our side of the county.
Rice hosts the people that have an issue.
How much money are they spending on that project?
Second,
How much, what's the dollar value?
I don't know the dollar value, but they said the amount of material we haul is 440,000 cubic yards of material.
40 billion.
It's a big project.
What's the name of the project?
It's just part of the harbor deepening, but they're building a water reservoir. So
Reservoir for Savannah ID where they pull water out of Effingham. It's going to create an impoundment where basically
they're gonna have stored water, so if there was ever any saltwater intrusion, they'll shut it down and start drawing out of the ground.
Now, we'll be able to have some solution. You'll have to do that in the river sometime.
Oh, since he brought up trash, what is our actual process? Does Public Works have a system or a cycle that inmates go through the county on any type of a cycle?
I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is before the changes that we made at the prison, no, I do know that. Since then, that was the idea, was to get back there. I don't think they fully implemented that at this point, just, you know, things are fairly new and they're still working through it. That is where we're trying to get to. We used to have a list of roads and they cycle through. But prior to the last month, no, we were not. It was complaint based. When people would complain, they would go out for the most part. So as of today, what I would say is we're somewhere between absolutely no schedule and getting a schedule. We're working towards that.
I had a lady call me the other day and she was very upset about Blue Jay Road. She was riding from 17 toward Rankin, kept noticing the trash. She told me she had friends of hers that was coming that was looking to purchase a house in Effingham. They decided to buy Southbridge instead of Effingham. Because of the trash on the road. I told her that wasn't a fair comparison to buy inside of a community with that type of amenities. But it did bring up a valid point. She says if we contract with anybody, I was behind one of our Republic trucks the other day. Trash, they were going down the road, just blowing out the top of the truck.
Yeah, and as you know, we've heard that multiple times from multiple people. It's a real issue, and that's one of the many things that we want to fix. Our solid waste contract is up the end of this year. We need to start. We have to give them an answer by August, whether or not we intend to renew it or not, or we have automatically renewed it. We don't tell them by then. So we're trying to, between now and then, do some negotiations with Republic and see if we've got to get some remedies built in there for things like that, for missed pickups, for the calls that we get, we log them, and it's ridiculous, the amount of calls that we get.
Well, if I thought I could have videotaped it safely and driven down the road at $1,000 per liter fine, I think we would not have owed them anything for several years.
Yeah.
But,
But we've got to get some
Literally.
remedies built in the contract.
Barbara, was that all you had?
Yes, sir.
The atmosphere.
I seen a picture of a yard in Westwood that couch and all stuff was dumped in.
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again. I was thinking of another picture.
That a couch and all kinds of stuff was just dumped all over it. It's about, might have been a couple of weeks ago. And I asked about code enforcement going over there. And I didn't know if that's something that those prisoners can pick up in trash as well. I don't know what scenario is it. I believe it's vacant property. I can find that picture and resend it. I think I sent it to you and Steph.
I remember it. And I asked RC to make sure he had Mike go out, but I hadn't heard anything else from him.
Are we still working on the
It's a different property, but it's terrible.
blight tax or whatever?
Oh, that's a
Working on
wrong. Yeah, over in Westwood.
Yeah, in Westwood.
Yeah, that was all picked up. All the work on it picked it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking like, you go
Yes.
past a couple of days, you gotta tell me that. I get confused.
He's done been to make it set in class since then.
Yeah. No, but yeah, Public Works went over and picked all that stuff up.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, there was a story, Mike went over, had already talked to him, and supposedly the neighbor said, "No, we'll handle that." And Mike said, "You sure?" "Yeah, we'll get it this Saturday." That was the story I got. So before you sent the picture. So when he went back over there, yeah, they coordinated and got all picked up.
Okay. That's it.
The only thing I was gonna ask, I think Laura was working on it with the, Veterans Park, on doing those maintenance things. Has she gotten anywhere? Have you heard from her?
I haven't asked her specifically on that. I know she's on the thing we sat down on the light. I'll get you an answer on that. I don't.
Okay.
Spoke with Dave Wills with ACCG several times over the past couple of weeks about the solar farms. I just wanted to get his input on what other counties were doing throughout the state. And pretty much his thoughts were that we were fine with what we were doing. We were pretty much in line. Right now, is if people have a solar farm, they have to pull that property out of Cooper, and they have to pay penalties and interest on that property that they pull out. And they also pay personal taxes on the infrastructure that's put on their property for the solar farms. There is a bill in the House that was submitted, and Dave referred to it as some type of carve-out bill. To his knowledge, it hasn't gained any traction, so at this time, nothing. And with the carve-out bill, it would do away with people having to pay penalties and interest pulling the property out of Cuba. So at this time, I mean, my opinion, unless somebody thinks anything different in the future, I think we're fine to keep things as they are in solar farms, keep looking at it on a case-by-case basis from information I got from ACCG.
And y'all see the one that's on low ground? Ooh, that thing is massive.
Things big, yeah.
What is it, 200 acres, isn't it?
I don't know how many megawatts that thing's going to wind up being.
It won't be as much as tonight.
Really?
Takes a bunch of beers to make an hour.
That's all. Reggie?
I just wanted to tell about, we've already talked about it, the strip at the end of Paul Road and Blue Jay Road. The fellows had called me twice about it, so anyway, you take care of that?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I have.
Yeah, I'd just like to go ahead and get the road turned. Anybody else? Brent? Always so quiet.
You can speak with us.
No other staff? All right. We'll move on. All right. Stephanie,
Yes, sir.
why you give me this empty green folder?
Did I give you?
Why'd you give me this
She meant to give it to me, bro.
I'm so sorry. You know, I had two copies. I had two copies in mine, and
Why'd you give me that empty green folder? I think I can read mine. All right, y'all got your green folder. Consideration to approve the February 16, 2016 executive session minutes.
Make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Kiefer, second by Commissioner Deloach to approve as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Any other business to come before this board? I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glover, second by Commissioner Kiefer. All in favor? None opposed. We stand adjourned.